Welcome to the Empowered Modern Witches Show. Join us to learn simple, accessible ways that the seasons, moon phases, and astrology can help you finally create a spiritual self-care practice you can be consistent with. I'm your host, Tanae Stewart, the Witch of Lupine Hollow. I'm a practicing witch, a certified astrologer, and a published author. And I'm on a mission to help modern witches like you nourish your mind, body, and intuition so you can be your most magical self. All day, every day. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are here today with Karen Gargiso, who is an accountant, a financial embodiment and empowerment coach, and founder and CEO of Sacred Money Inc. Karen also happens to be the accountant for Lupine Hollow. She is passionate about empowering spiritual, creative, and sensually spicy entrepreneurs by integrating practical money management, tax strategies, financial literacy, all the practical stuff, with the emotional, energetic, somatic, and psychological aspects of money in a shame-free way. Thanks for being here, Karen.
I am super excited to be here.
Yay!
Thank you for having me.
So happy to have you. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Sure. So you already got my name. So basically, to sum it up, I am your accountant, financial empowerment coach, embodiment, money embodiment, wealth embodiment kind of work, integrating astrology and human design, which I love. All things witchy and all things magical, into getting into a better relationship with your finances through bookkeeping, through doing your freaking taxes, and just your financial trauma healing, and things like that.
Such important topics and themes, really. Money is it's such an important part of our everyday life. So why shouldn't it also be part of our spiritual practice? So we like to start every guest episode with the same question. And the question right now is, what does it mean to you to live a magical life? I would love to get your thoughts on that.
So for me personally, and especially with being a second house Scorpio, a lot of what helps me to live a magical life is pleasure. And it does involve money, and it's more than just accumulating wealth. It's about using all of my resources to enhance every experience, contributing to my own happiness as well as others, and creating a positive impact in pretty much everything. So traveling, owning my beautiful home, going to Home Goods and buying all the beautiful things for the home, having time for hobbies, helping other people, and just, whatever the heck it is that I want to do with my life.
I love that. And I love that we have this opportunity to really bring these very practical, mundane parts of our lives into our spirituality too, and to see them as all connected.
No, I know. And one of the things that I've had to learn, and this retrograde is kicking my ass on it, is not being afraid of fucking up. And especially when you're working with other people's money, there is its own wound and trauma that it creates on its own. And only when I became an entrepreneur, I became more aware of it, right? When you're working for a company, you just, go about your day, doing your tasks and your responsibilities, meeting your deadlines. But becoming an entrepreneur, I started realizing, feeling all of these different emotions and having all of these different thoughts, coming in. It was oh my God, what fresh hell is this? What do I do now? And that's kind of where I started doing my own healing. and learning more about how astrology like influences me um, has really helped me to become more conscious and aware and more mindful of the type of life that I was living and the type of life that I want to live, whether in the present or in the future. And pleasure definitely surrounds a lot of it. Spirituality surrounds a lot of it. Empowerment, witchy practices, all of those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that that's so interesting to have like your work, which, and I mean, a lot of spiritual business owners experience this, but it's interesting because although your business is spiritual, like the practical work you're doing, like people do in non spiritual ways. Absolutely. Right. In fact, most people do. And so it's really interesting to have like your work also be a healing journey for you.
Hmm.
That's so powerful.
Yeah, it definitely it is so transformative. And if it wasn't my passion to do the work, I feel like I would just be, how I was at my corporate job, just going through the day, going through the motions. But now it's kind of like shifted to going more with like this wonderful, wavy, energetic kind of like flow.
Yeah, totally. And I like that you specifically weave pleasure in, right? So since you do have that strong like Scorpio, Taurus, second house kind of energy, which that axis has so much to do with money for one thing, and so much to
Mhm.
do with magic and pleasure. And that so often like those placements, right? If you, especially people who have Taurus and Scorpio in their charts, like so often that can manifest as someone feeling this like tug of war between like something needs to be like hard and painful and a struggle in order to be worthy, right? Versus like,
Mm.
no, we're inherently worthy, right? And things can be easy and full of pleasure. And I think that's really, it's so interesting that you like bring that into this work that can feel so like painful and scary for so many people.
Mhm. And it's funny that you talked about like, pain and pleasure because it's definitely one of the things that like managing your finances or interacting with your finances in like a joyful, spiritually enriched way um, can truly transform it into becoming a more fun and playful and pleasurable process rather than this like, huge task to do that I don't really want to do. So like learning more about like my cosmic signature and how the moon phases or my other planets or what's transiting has like been influencing me because like i I've always loved astrology and would like sneak around and like read my horoscope for like the day or for like the week or for like the month ahead kind of thing. But when I got into business myself, then I really started diving more deeper into like spirituality and witchcraft. And I was like, wow, like, but I didn't understand at the time, like, why I was feeling the way that I was until I started getting astrology readings and, working with spiritual coaches. And, that's how like my brand just was born. And it was like learning about myself and learning like why I love to earn money and what I'm using money for. And it's so funny to see like how everything in my chart influences like how I manage, how I spend, what I inherited, whether it's past ancestral, from my parents or just like influences around me. Um and all going back to going from like the hustle and the pain from like earning money and having money into now having this better relationship, more intimate and more playful and honestly more happy when it comes to earning and spending and having money.
Totally. Well, and I think that's really an important point, right? Is that so much of our perspectives on everything, right? So much of our perspectives on spirituality, on all different topics, but definitely so much of our perspectives on money come from something outside of us, right? Like they come from our parents, our grandparents, our lineage, they come from society. And you do some work with your clients on helping them to heal that, right?
Hmm. So, financial trauma can lurk in the shadows of our past experiences, and they do shape how we view money today. And sometimes, unless you're like going into personal development or professional development, doing this work, then you often just don't realize it. And whether it's a family legacy or, family legacy of debt or personal experiences of financial scarcity, these shadows can induce fear and avoidance around money. And that's mostly what I work with around, or two of the things that comes up the most when working with my clients. And for me, having my Venus and my Pluto and my Sun in my second house, like, has helped me to understand the way that I coach when it comes to money. How I help to give them either practical practices, or giving them a ritual to do. What kind of hypnosis are we going to do? Or how are we going to tailor your money management for your business and your personal finances that is actually going to give you what you need in this moment to heal those past wounds? And one of the biggest things is acknowledgement, and acknowledgement is so powerful. By naming our financial fears, we shine a light on them, diminishing their power over us. This and it just becomes like this crucial step before you can meaningfully engage with any kind of therapeutic approaches to heal that money trauma or money wound.
Yeah, absolutely. And this work is so deep, right? Because, like you were saying at the beginning, right? Like money is such an essential part of our lives in the society we live in. It's how we have a home, it's how we get to do the things we like to do. And when we have those really deep wounds around it, it really affects so many different areas of our lives. So this like healing around money is not just about like how can I make more money, which we all deserve to make, but like also what other areas of our lives does it like trickle out into, right?
Mm-hmm. For me, like, I never when I learned what a Scorpio meant, or like the definition or the themes that a lot of us project onto Scorpios. I was like, I don't want to be a Scorpio anymore, because like they project a lot of like, we're like this brooding, moody, overly sensual, sexual being. And I was just like, no, I don't resonate with any of this fucking thing, but like the more that like I got into the work, and it was kind of like my coming to age moment almost. Um, that's when I really started to understand, like, wow, like a lot of my spending and a lot of my like the way that I am is more coming from emotion. And it was just really funny to see how my intense emotions connect to money. And like learning those behaviors, learning about the emotions, learning about the thoughts that comes from them, like helped me to have a better financial intuition, and on how to and what to make investments in, and what to spend on and what to save on, um so I do feel like, learning more about like my astrology like helped me to become this other version or this deeper version of myself. Because before, like, I used to avoid it. I never wanted to manage my finances. Like, I never wanted to look at a budget. I never wanted to like look at the bank statements and see like, oh well, we spent this much in this month on food or eating out, or you know um you spent this much on buying clothes for the office. but like going on like the journey of learning about myself and, like my money really, really changed my view on myself and helped me to understand like what it is that I want in a relationship with money or with wealth. Um, and a lot of it I had to discipline myself. I had to have strategic approaches when it came to, my business finances as well as my personal finances so that I can ensure that I have long-term success and accumulating wealth.
Such powerful insights for yourself to have from your chart like that. I definitely had similar experiences when I first started getting to know my chart better and realizing like, oh, there's so much here that this can like confirm or validate about myself, but also that can really help you understand yourself so much better.
Mhm.
What are some of the things that you either like to look at with clients or that you recommend people look at in their chart to help them kind of understand where some of those financial wounds might be?
So when I first started learning about money and astrology, the go-to is Venus or the go-to is Jupiter, right? Planet of value, planet of expansion. But you also have to look at your Saturn, your limitation, your restriction, where you might have that theme of scarcity or fear around not having enough or not playing the significant role, or what is playing a significant role in your scarcity or lack, um, and also your Chiron. And for me, my Chiron kind of like showed me where I spend the biggest, right? And, Chiron being like, our major wound of what we're trying to heal, what we're working on healing. It showed me like the investments that I made the most of in my business. So my Chiron is in Gemini. And for me, when, like the first 3 years of my business, it was being spent on this certification, this coaching program, this coaching like course, or, basically education, right? And it was because like, oh, I felt like I didn't know enough. And if I didn't know enough, I wasn't good enough. And if I didn't know enough, and if I felt like I wasn't enough, then I wasn't showing up. And that was like a huge awakening for me because like I just kept spending and spending and spending on these things. And also, the FOMO, right? Because like now you're a part of like this network of making these investments into these institutions or coaches or businesses. And, I was just like, wow, okay, so here's where I have to recognize where my major wounding is and where I spend the most of my money on. And I started to shift a little bit. I started to see where all my fears were like coming up, and it was about going back to self worth. So, self worth is my major wound. And, I sat down one day and I like outlined like self worth for me, like all of the themes, where it was around like my body or how I carry myself, how I dress myself, how I speak, how I write, all of the things that you have to do and show up as the business owner. And, a lot of it for me is around education, you know, teaching, guiding, advising. And I felt like I didn't know enough to share with my audience or with my clients. And recognizing that from seeing like the trends and the patterns in how I was spending really was my awakening moment of not really like tailoring back or putting this limit or restriction on myself, but it was like, hey, here it is. Look at me so that I can grow from here. So once you recognize where the scarcity or the fear is, so I would say more when you recognize like where the fear is when I started to see like what limitation and restriction I've been like putting on myself, or the excuse that I've been putting in front of me in order to not really heal that wound.
This is such a great way to work with Chiron, especially because Chiron is not only the wound, it's also like our gift too, once we find the wound and we acknowledge it and we work with it, you know? And so I feel like seeing you kind of go from feeling like I don't know enough and I have to learn all these things to also being the teacher yourself, right? And being able to share and, you know, share your wisdom and your message and the things that you have learned, but also the things that you just like innately know too, right?
Mhm.
Is so powerful. Like I think Chiron is such a beautiful part of the chart for so many different things, so many ways we can work with it. But I can totally see how it would line up with money in that way, right? In the way that we might feel like not enough, or we might feel like we need to compensate for something, right?
Right. No, it definitely is.
So powerful. Can you speak just a little bit more on like the pleasure side and like how bringing pleasure into money, like what that can actually look like, and you know how people can do that?
hmm Um, so I think like one of the things that you should ask yourself is, how are you managing your finances now? What is your financial management process, practice, ritual? What does it look like? How are you feeling through it? And if that fear is coming up, or if that anxiousness or those feelings of avoidance is coming up, then it is asking you to embrace it so that you can deeply heal it, enrich it, align it so that you can feel good about actually wanting to manage your money. And that leads to pleasure. So, pleasure is a powerful motivator, and pleasure can be related to your values. And it turns the tasks that we might avoid into experiences we look forward to. And when we approach our finances with a sense of joy and excitement, we're more likely to engage with them regularly, right? Like make more informed decisions and create a financial reality that truly serves you. So recognizing where these wounds and where these traumas are from past and still carrying over into pleasure, so doing the shadow work on it, is what is going to help you bringing that awareness so that you can transform that relationship of managing your finances, whether it is spending or investing or saving or having whatever it is that you're looking to do with money can lead you to a life of pleasure. Shifting that perspective can transform those tasks of budgeting into an act of self-care and manifestation.
So good. Yeah, I love that. And I think like there's so many ways that we can make things. I was just talking about this in like a course that I'm doing right now. That there's so many ways we can make these like very mundane, just like necessary, you know, boring things into something that's actually really spiritual. And so often that's just about like changing our perspective and like reframing something as like, well, what if this wasn't separate from my spirituality?
Right. And it really doesn't have to be like this extravagant kind of like practice, you know, especially if you're on a, you know, really tight budget, you know, like create a little pleasurable environment, have some candles, play your favorite music, you know, a delicious cup of tea, uh, get, like activate all of your senses, including your sixth sense, when it comes to like, wanting to look at your money or even to enjoy money. Get something that feels indulgent and cozy, comfy, that you want to sit down and like do like a check-in. Or, like if it comes to like you've accomplished a goal and you want to reward yourself, then reward yourself. But a lot of their limitations and restrictions are coming from ourselves. And when you recognize that, it can make the journey more pleasurable, but also reinforce positive financial behaviors. Practice gratitude, involve a community, share it with your close friends and family who you're comfortable with talking about money with.
Such good suggestions. I love it. There's going to be lots of practical things to take notes on from this episode. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Karen. Can you tell us a little bit more about just where people can find you and how you can work with them?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram. That's where I hang out the most. At Karen Gargiso .sacredmoneyinc, or you can visit my website at www.sacredmoneyinc.com. And I believe that some of my stuff will be posted at the bottom of the show notes. So feel free to follow, connect, come engage, come learn all of the freaking things and exciting things around money.
Perfect. Yes. Go check Karen out on Instagram and all the places. We will link those below the episode. And thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks for being here, Karen.
Thank you so much.
As always, thanks for listening to the Empowered Modern Witches Show. I'm Tanae Stewart, the Witch of Lupine Hollow, and it's my pleasure to be your host. If you loved this episode, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Much love from Lupine Hollow.